All right, let's get into it. This is a story that, honestly, it has everything you could imagine. Insane wealth, a secret private island, some of the most powerful people in the world. But at its core, it's about a really dark criminal conspiracy that preyed on vulnerable people for decades. So today we're going to try to untangle the massive web of Jeffrey Epstein. And really, it all boils down to one question. How on earth could something like this happen, right in plain sight, for so long?
So where do you even start with a story this huge? Well, to really get it, you can't actually start with the man himself. No, you have to start with the place, that infamous private island that was, the very heart of his criminal empire.
The whole thing is just wrapped in these questions that honestly sound like they're straight out of a movie. I mean, think about it. How does a private island become a playground for the super powerful to do these just unspeakable things? And this is the big one. When the walls finally started closing in, how did the guy at the center of it all end up dead in one of the most secure jails in the entire country? It's a lot to unpack.
Okay, so let's zoom in on Epstein Island, officially known as Little St. James. On the surface, it was a 72-acre Caribbean paradise. Absolutely stunning. But, underneath all that luxury, it was a fortress of secrets. We're talking about investigators finding secret underground tunnels, really strange statues, and even this bizarre temple-like building. The whole place was covered in CCTV cameras, and for Epstein's elite guests, the main way to get there was on his private jet, which got that notorious nickname, the Lolita Express.
So who was the guy who built this private kingdom of secrets? And how in the world did he climb so high so fast? All right, let's go back and trace his incredible rise to power. I mean, his rise was just meteoric. It's kind of hard to believe. He starts out in the 1970s as a math teacher, right? But he quickly uses his connections to jump over to Wall Street. Then, by the 80s and 90s, he's managing the fortunes of actual billionaires, like Leslie Wexner, the guy behind Victoria's Secret. And here's the key. He wasn't just making a ton of money in commissions. He was getting access to this elite global network. And that combination, the wealth and the access, well, that became the foundation for everything that was about to happen.
And that immense wealth, it bought him an incredible amount of power. He then used that power to build this criminal network that for years operated right under the noses of some of the most influential people on the planet.
Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand. Epstein was not acting alone, not even close. His partner in crime was Ghislaine Maxwell. Her father was a huge British media tycoon, so she came from that world. You can kind of think of it like this. Epstein was the financier, the money guy. But Maxwell, she was the alleged mastermind recruiter. Survivors have testified that she would be the one to go out and find vulnerable underage girls, sometimes literally outside of schools, and then lure them in with promises of money or modeling careers.
And the level of access they had, it's just staggering. I mean, let's look at the names. Flight logs show former President Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's jet 26 times. Donald Trump was a friend of his back in the 90s. And of course, there's Britain's Prince Andrew, who was forced to basically give up his royal duties after he settled a massive lawsuit with one of the survivors, Virginia Giuffre. It makes you wonder, right? Especially when the FBI raided Epstein's home and found all these CDs and photos. It raises that really chilling question. Was this whole thing also a blackmail operation?
Okay, so eventually this whole network starts to unravel. It had to at some point. But the very first time the law actually caught up with Epstein, well, what happened next became one of the most controversial and frankly infuriating legal deals in modern history.
So here's how it went down. It all kicked off in 2005 when a survivor, Courtney Wild, bravely filed a police report. That got the FBI involved, and they uncovered dozens more victims. So Epstein was looking at life in prison, for sure. But instead of that, his high-powered lawyers cut this secret backroom deal with the U.S. attorney at the time, Alexander Acosta. And the worst part, the victims had no idea. They were kept completely in the dark. The result was a sentence that was just a total mockery of justice. He got just 13 months and even had work release privileges during the day. Unbelievable. But that wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot. After years of silence, the whole thing came roaring back to life, thanks to some really courageous journalism and, most importantly, the unwavering voices of his victims.
Okay, so the big turning point comes in 2018. A journalist named Julie K. Brown publishes this incredible report called Perversion of Justice, and it blows the lid off that secret 2008 plea deal. Public outrage was just immediate and massive. So by July 2019, Jeffrey Epstein is arrested again, this time on federal sex trafficking charges. And this time, there was no way he was getting a secret deal. It looked like he was finally going to trial, finally going to have to name names, and then, the most shocking twist of all, he's found dead in his jail cell.
The investigation did keep going, though, which led to Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest in 2020 and eventually her 20-year prison sentence in 2022.
So the big question, suicide or murder? Officially, the cause of death was ruled as suicide, but the circumstances around that night were so weird, so suspicious, that they immediately sparked this huge wave of speculation that, he didn't kill himself, he was silenced.
I mean, just look at the facts from that night. You have the most high-profile inmate in the entire country, and on the night he dies, both, not one, but both of the CCTV cameras outside his cell just malfunctioned. The 2 guards who were supposed to be on duty, they were asleep. And on top of all that, even though he had a previous suicide attempt, he had just recently been taken off suicide watch. So for a lot of people, this doesn't add up to a series of mistakes. It points to a cover-up.
So, Epstein is dead, Maxwell is in prison, but the fight for the full truth and for real accountability for everyone involved, yeah, that is far from over.
Think about this number, $121 million. That's how much has been paid out from a victim compensation fund that was set up using Epstein's estate. That money has gone to more than 150 survivors. And it's a tangible form of justice for sure, but you have to feel it's a small one compared to the lives that were destroyed. And because of all this intense public pressure, thousands of pages of court documents have now been released. You've probably heard them called the Epstein Files. But here's the thing. It really feels like just the tip of the iceberg. There's actually a new law that sets a deadline of December 19, 2025 for the government to release all the documents related to the case. But even then, there's a huge fight over what gets blacked out. And get this, there are still more than 1 million pages that remain completely sealed.
This whole case has just ripped the curtain back on this dark underworld where it seems like enough wealth and power can buy you silence and shield you from justice. With so many names still blacked out in those documents and so many files still hidden away, the biggest question of all is still hanging in the air. Epstein is gone, sure, but are his secrets and the secrets of all the powerful people he knew really buried with him?